I'm Matthew, 28 male. I'm an automotive engineer in Detroit. By day, I design engines. By night, I stare at the water stains on my ceiling, trapped in a life that feels like it ended 4 years ago. That was when my father, Malcolm Winslow, died in a fire that destroyed his logistics warehouse, the company he built from nothing. My life is a cramped apartment and a grief that never fades. But all of that was about to change because of a single phone call at 2:00 a.m. Before this story unfolds, I'd love to connect with you. Please let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is in your corner of the world. It's amazing to see how far these stories can travel. 1. The setup. For 4 years, I've been a ghost. My father, Malcolm Winslow, was my hero. He was the heart of Winslow Logistics, a company he built with his own hands. Then one night, an electrical fire tore through the main warehouse. The news report said he was inside checking inventory, a habit of his. They found a body, and the only thing identifiable was the silver watch on its wrist, a 50th birthday present from me. The fire destroyed him, and it destroyed me. I couldn't stand to be in the building he built, so I left the company and took a simple engineering job, hiding in blueprints and engine specs. The world just stopped. Meanwhile, my stepmother Alina barely missed a beat. She was my father's second wife, and after a very public, very convincing period of mourning, she took control of everything. Winslow Logistics was paid millions in insurance, and she rebuilt it in her own image with her son from a previous marriage, Alex, as her second in command. I was 24, shattered by grief, and in no position to fight her when she said, "You're not ready for this, Matthew, let me handle it." I let her. I checked out of my own life and let her take everything. I lived in this numb fog for 1,460 days, believing the story everyone told me. The fire was a tragic accident, my father was gone, my life was over. 2. The betrayal. It was just after 2:00 a.m. I was in that awful half-sleep, where you're too tired to be awake but too anxious to really rest. Then my old phone vibrated on the nightstand. I keep two phones, my work smartphone and my old, ancient Nokia. It was the phone I used to have when my father was alive. I never had the heart to get rid of it. I kept it charged, holding onto his old number in the contacts list. The ringtone that blasted through the silent room wasn't my usual one. It was the simple, tinny melody my father had set years ago. My heart hammered against my ribs. I thought I was dreaming. I fumbled for the phone, my hand shaking. The small, pixelated screen lit up and I froze. The name flashing on the screen was Dad. I stared at it, unable to breathe. It had to be a glitch, a cruel, sick prank. My thumb hovered over the answer button, but I couldn't move. I was paralyzed by a fear so cold it burned. Who could be doing this? This number hadn't been active in 4 years. It was disconnected. It was dead. The ringing went on for what felt like an eternity, then stopped. The room was plunged back into silence, broken only by the sound of my own ragged breathing. My mind was screaming, "It's not real. It's a dream." But it wasn't. I opened the call history. There it was, one missed call, Dad. My hands were trembling so badly I could barely type. I pressed the call button to dial the number back. I needed to hear the error message, the proof that I was just going crazy. A mechanical voice answered immediately. "The subscriber you are calling is currently unavailable." My heart sank, but a new feeling was rising through the panic, suspicion. It wasn't a dream, it wasn't a glitch. Someone somewhere had just used my dead father's phone number to call me. 3. The discovery. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. That one missed call had shattered the gray, numb world I'd been living in. It was a crack in the story I'd been told, and now I was pulling at it, desperate to see what was underneath. I tore my apartment apart, digging out the old file box I'd packed away. It was full of news clippings from the fire, grainy photos, and a copy of the official police report. I'd read it a dozen times 4 years ago, but then I was blinded by grief. Now I was reading it with cold, sharp suspicion. Electrical accident, no signs of foul play, body identified by personal effects. It all seemed so neat, too neat. I kept digging, pushing aside old memories and focusing on the facts, and then I found it. It was a supplemental report, a timeline of events from the night of the fire, including traffic camera logs from the surrounding streets. My breath caught. A traffic camera at an intersection a mile from the warehouse had captured a familiar license plate. Alina's silver Mercedes. I checked the timestamp, 23:30. The fire, according to the main report, was first called in at 23:42. She was there 12 minutes before the fire erupted. I flashed back to that night, to her phone call, her voice trembling. "Matthew, the warehouse is on fire. Your father, he's in there." She had told me she was at home, waiting for him to return from the office. She had lied. Why was she there, and why did she lie about it? The grief that had defined my life for 4 years was instantly burned away, replaced by a white-hot, clarifying rage. My father didn't die in an accident, he was murdered, and my stepmother was there when it happened. For the investigation. I'm an engineer, my brain works in data, signals, and systems. For the first time in 4 years, I had a problem to solve. I took the old Nokia, the one that received the call. The call had to come from a real, physical device, and that device had to connect to a cell tower. I still had contacts at a few tech firms. I made a call, pulled a favor, and got the cell tower data for the call made from my father's old number. The signal pinged from a tower in a desolate, remote area near Lake Michigan, about 60 miles from Detroit. The signal was isolated, originating from a sparsely populated patch of forest and old cabins. I didn't tell anyone, I just packed a bag, a flashlight, and the fire report, and I drove. It took me 2 hours to get there, the GPS leading me down dirt trails that were barely roads. I finally parked my car and walked the last half-mile. The cabin was exactly as you'd picture, old, rotting wood, a collapsed porch hidden by dense pine trees. It looked abandoned. But it wasn't, the front door was unlocked. Inside it was cold and musty, but someone had been there recently. There was an empty coffee cup on a table, a few packaged food boxes, and recent newspapers. My heart was pounding. On the table next to the cup was another ancient Nokia phone, identical to mine. The battery was sitting next to it, the SIM card removed. My hands shook as I picked it up, put the battery in, and powered it on. No password. I went straight to the call history. There was only one number in the log, an outgoing call made at 2:00 a.m. To me. Someone had been here, they had called me, then left the phone and disappeared. It was a clue, a breadcrumb. I searched the tiny cabin, frantic. In a drawer under a pile of old newspapers, I found a small piece of paper, its edges scorched. On it, in familiar handwriting that made my heart stop, was a short line of text. KM4Y127. My father's handwriting. 5. The plan. I drove back to Detroit with the scorched note clutched in my hand. KM4Y127. It was a code, I knew it, my mind raced. 4Y, 4 years, that was obvious. 127, a room number and address. I got back to my apartment and logged into my laptop. I hadn't worked at Winslow Logistics for years, but I was still an engineer. I still had a backdoor into the old company data servers, an account Alina probably forgot existed. I pulled up the old asset manifests, warehouse maps, and storage logs. I searched for 127. Nothing. Then I tried KM. My blood ran cold. KM was the company code for Kent, Michigan, an industrial sector on the outskirts of Detroit where the company used to store surplus equipment. I pulled up the map for the KM sector, and there it was, Warehouse 127, an old, abandoned, forgotten facility. This was it. It wasn't just a clue, it was an invitation, or a trap. I didn't care. I didn't wait for daylight. I grabbed my flashlight and drove. The warehouse was in a dead industrial park. The chain-link fence was rusted, the main building dark and imposing. I slipped through a broken fence panel and went inside. The air was thick with dust. My flashlight beam cut through the darkness, illuminating rows of silent, shrouded machinery. "Hello," I called out, my voice echoing. A sound, a footstep limping from the back of the warehouse. I whipped my flashlight toward the noise, and a figure stepped out of the shadows. He was thin, his hair was white, and he walked with a heavy limp. The flashlight beam hit his face, those familiar blue eyes, weary and etched with pain. My flashlight clattered to the floor. "Dad," I whispered, my voice breaking. It was him, Malcolm Winslow, alive. We just stood there crying, holding onto each other. He was real. He was alive. He explained it all, his voice hoarse. The night of the fire, he was in the office with Rick Hayes, the loyal warehouse manager. They heard the explosion. Rick, who admired my father's watch, had asked to try it on just moments before. When the fire cut them off, Rick shoved my father into a hidden service tunnel. "Run, boss," were his last words. My father escaped, badly injured, just as the warehouse collapsed. The body they found, the one wearing his watch, was Rick's. He knew it was sabotage. He knew Alina was behind it, so he let the world think he was dead. He'd been hiding for 4 years, moving from cabin to warehouse, secretly gathering evidence, waiting for the right time. She's been hunting me, Matt, he said, his voice hard. She knows I'm alive, now we end this. He reached into his coat and handed me a small USB drive. This is everything, but it's not enough, we need an inside man. 6. The confrontation. I took my father to a safe house, a small apartment my friend Jake let me use, and I plugged in the USB. It was horrifying. Emails between Alina and an unknown address discussing resolving the Malcolm problem. Bank transfers to offshore accounts. Audio snippets of her cold, calculating voice. I called Jake, my old college friend who was now a lawyer. We met at a crowded coffee shop. I gave him the USB and told him everything. His face went pale. Matt, this is insane. This is evidence of arson, conspiracy to commit murder, and massive fraud, but it's not a slam dunk. The emails are anonymous, the audio is choppy. To guarantee a conviction, we need a witness, someone from the inside. Alex, I said, my stepbrother, Alina's puppet. He's the weak link, Jake agreed. He's either a co-conspirator or a witness. You need to flip him. I set the meeting. I called Alex, pretending I wanted to reconnect, talk about coming back to the company. We met at a quiet diner. He looked terrible, pale, jumpy, dark circles under his eyes. He was living in hell and he knew it. I didn't waste time. I know about the fire, Alex, I said, my voice low. I know it wasn't an accident and I know you were involved. He froze, his coffee cup clattering into the saucer. I don't know what you're talking about. I know Alina was at the warehouse, I pressed. I know she hired someone to set the fire. I know she forged the will. Alex broke. He just collapsed, burying his face in his hands, sobbing. I didn't know he was going to die, he cried. She said it was just to scare him, to make him sell. She forced me. I was just supposed to plant the chemicals. I sent the email. I have the original will. She made me hide it. It was the confession we needed. He was weak, terrified, and eaten alive by guilt. Do you want to make this right, Alex? He looked up, tears streaming down his face. Yes, I can't live like this. As if on cue, the diner door opened. My father walked in, limping but standing tall. Alex's face went white. He looked like he'd seen a ghost. Uncle's Malcolm. Hello, Alex, my father said, sliding into the booth. It's time we talked. That's all it took. Seeing my father alive, knowing the lie was that big, shattered Alex's remaining loyalty to his mother. He agreed to testify, to give us the original will, to tell the police everything. 7. The aftermaths. With Alex's testimony and the original will, Jake took the entire package, the USB, the fire report, and Alex's sworn affidavit, directly to the district attorney. 2 days later, all hell broke loose. The police didn't just knock. They raided Winslow Logistics in the middle of a workday. We were watching from a car down the street. They marched into the building, and minutes later they emerged with Alina. She was in handcuffs, screaming, her face a mask of pure, unfiltered rage. You can't do this. Do you know who I am? Alex, you traitor. It was on every news channel. The trial was the biggest story in Detroit. The case of the businesswoman who murdered her husband for his company, only for the husband to show up at his own murder trial. The moment my father walked into that courtroom, the place exploded. Alina just shrieked, a raw animal sound. The evidence was overwhelming. The emails, the recordings, the forged will. But it was Alex's testimony and my father's that sealed her fate. Alina was found guilty on all counts. First-degree murder, arson, fraud, life in prison, no possibility of parole. Alex, for his cooperation, received a reduced sentence, 3 years probation. He'd lost his mother, but he'd finally done the right thing. The company was in ruins, but it wasn't gone. The board, seeing my father was alive and I was the one who uncovered the truth, reinstated us. My father officially handed the CEO title to me. Our first act was to offer Alex a job. He started at the bottom on the loading docks, working to earn back his name. My father, my dead dad, now sits in on board meetings as a senior advisor. And me, I'm finally where I'm supposed to be. It's not about designing engines. It's about rebuilding my father's legacy, the one he, Alex, and I are now running together piece by piece from the ashes.